All right, good evening, everybody. How y'all doing tonight? So, welcome to our Mount Royal Town Hall, a pretty big town hall at that. So, first of all, congratulations to all of you for coming out today. Thank you to our theater management for making this venue available to us, Master Glenn in particular. Thank you to all our volunteers who are helping get you guys in the doors quickly and safely. Now, at this point, you probably don't want me to talk too much. I think you want the guests to talk here. So with that in mind, I'm just going to introduce the two people to my right here. I think you're familiar with them. We're going to start, of course, with the next MP from Mount Royal, Neil. And another good friend of Mount Royal, although she's coming from the riding of Thornhill. She's the MP from Thornhill and the deputy leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, the official opposition, Melissa Lantsman. And on that note, we're going to have a very kind of loose format. So we're going to open off. We're going to have Neil speak first, then Melissa, and then we're going to get to the question part, and that's when I'll get back into things. All right, take care, everybody. Neil Oberman.
Bienvenue. Bonjour. Thank you for coming out. I know it's snowy and everybody in Quebec says the minute it snows, we're staying home. But you came out, and if you're here, it's because you care. There may be people here tonight who don't know me, who don't want to know me. Some people up front obviously know me. You missed the fun. If you're here, it's important because it's an opportunity to hear a message that perhaps you have not received yet, that you have not yet been able to fully understand because I have not communicated well to you. And I want to take this evening to try to give you a clear message of what is our platform, what is the vision, and how this riding is going to go from where it is to where it needs to be. This is not an evening to bash anybody. It's not an evening to be rude to anybody. We're here to have an opportunity to interact in a positive way. Because, you know, a lot of people talk about negativity, and negativity won't bring us where we need to be. But there are some facts that I think you should hear. And I don't want to start off on a bad light, but I want to read you some statistics. This is very important. Inflation is at 1.9% and rising. Interest rates are at a 30-year high. Housing is unaffordable for young people. 1 in 7 families are using food banks. 2025, 1 in 7 families. We have a drug problem in our country. Our economy has shrunk to pre-2014 levels. 29 First Nations still don't have clean drinking water. Yes. Parliament is prorogued. Your voice is not being heard. Our armed forces are demoralized and we're not respecting our commitments internationally. The Bank of Canada is losing billions of dollars. Our interest payments per week are $1 billion. The Chinese are interfering in our country. 10 years of deficits. And here's another statistic that's very scary. In 2025, students need to hire lawyers to go to university. They need to hire lawyers to go to their CEGEPs. People need lawyers so that they're not abused on the street. Like, you didn't see what happened on the way in here today. There are people in our society that don't recognize some parts of our community. Now, there may be people here who are from different parts of the riding, but you need to understand we are all one riding. We are one community, because what happens to one community inevitably happens to another. So why am I running? I am running not because I have to, it's because I cannot sit back and allow what's going on without doing something. And I have no political background. I ran once for office municipally, but I'm not a politician. I'm a person who believes strongly that we can do better. Not only can we do better, we have to do better. But you know, it's going to be hard because there's a lot of things that have happened that shouldn't have happened. And I've taken a particular interest in young people. Why? Because young people are the future. They're the present, but they're also the future. And if you notice that all the haters, you can define who the haters are, they always target young people because if you demoralize and dehumanize young people, those people won't stay. And if they don't stay, who will we be as a community, as a riding, as a province, and as a country? And I have to say, my last 17 months has been extremely difficult, fighting haters on the campuses for our community. And I hope one day I'm going to be out of a job, Melissa. That's my main goal, is to be out of a job as fighting anti-Semitism, anti-democracy, and quite frankly, just hate. Because that's all it is, whether you hate this person, whether you hate that person. So, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a business owner, and you know what? I'm a proud Canadian, and I'm a proud citizen. And that's something that we're missing right now. And as a community, you coming out here is to hear a message of what are we going to do, how are we going to do it, and when are we going to get to running our country like a proper country where we're respected. What we lack now in Ottawa are serious, mature people who are charged with protecting us. Do you know the government's primary function is to protect its citizens? To protect them from hate, protect them from violence, ensure that their ability to feed their children, house their families. Where has this gone? It is no longer present. I could sit here all night and fetch and tell you about how things are bad, but that's not going to get us where we need to be. Tonight, you're going to hear answers to questions from myself and from Melissa, and it is an opportunity that your voice will be heard. So I thank you. Un peu en français, ce soir, vous avez l'opportunité d'entendre un message. Pourquoi où nous sommes, ce n'est pas de la bonne place. Il faut que des gens dans notre communauté sachent qu'il va y avoir un futur où des gens sont capables de vivre, nourrir leur famille, avoir une maison. Soyez très fiers d'être Canadiens et Québécois en passant. Et en plus, une journée va venir où notre gouvernement va être là pour nous protéger. C'est le but primaire de notre gouvernement, c'est de nous protéger. Et maintenant, ce n'est pas là. So, with that in mind, I'm going to hand it over to Melissa for a quick introduction, and then we're going to start taking the question and answers. Thank you.
What do you think? He's ready for a French debate? I think so. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm here. It's not my first time. It certainly won't be my last time. I love coming to Montreal, and I'm here primarily to support my friend Neil Oberman, who I really want on the team in Ottawa. I'm going to tell you how lucky you are to have somebody like Neil who puts his money where his mouth is and actually fights. He's not even the MP yet. And what he's done for the community is, quite frankly, impressive. And we would be lucky for him to finally have a seat at the table. That's what I think the riding of Mount Royal deserves, and that's what I think the riding of Mount Royal doesn't have. Now, I want to address some of the things that I chatted with a few people in the room. They're like, what's going on? Well, we're not in Ottawa right now. Parliament's prorogued. The Liberals have put their own political dramas ahead of the interests of the country. We are staring down the barrel constantly of 25% tariff threats, and Canadians have never had it so hard. You wouldn't know that from watching the political drama on the Liberal side and the debates, which sound more like town halls of four people agreeing with each other who all want to replace Justin Trudeau with the exact same agenda that he's had for 9 years. But I have to tell you, things have never been worse in this country, and we shouldn't be afraid to call them out. In fact, it's a responsibility to call them out so we can fix them. And we want to address some of the concerns that you have tonight. I know we got some questions. If we have some more time, we'll certainly open the floor. We want to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting with Neil Oberman. But let's see where we are right now. Let's just go through it. Neil mentioned it. Housing prices have doubled in the last 9 years. The price of rent has doubled in the last 9 years. The price of a mortgage payment has doubled in 9 years. 2 million people a month are eating in a food bank in this country. Crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder rule our streets. 49,000 people in the last 10 years have died from fentanyl overdoses. Our immigration system is in crisis mode. Everything in this country has the potential, the unique potential, to work for the people that work hard. And I think that we have the right guy in the right place at the right time to make the changes necessary to put us in the best position possible. That's Pierre Poilievre as our next Prime Minister, and I can't wait till it happens. I'm going to go through a little bit of our plan. We've announced more policy than I think any opposition leader in history. We're certainly going to axe the carbon tax and bring in a new middle-class tax cut, the most patriotic tax cut that is going to actually fight the threat of terrorists. Not only are we going to simplify the tax code, we're 20% less paperwork, less complicated, a more fair tax system for everyone. That needs to be done in order for people to get by. We are going to bring in a dollar-for-dollar law. Every minister that spends $1 in their ministry is going to have to find $1 saved, so the cost of government will actually go down. The cost of government has increased by more than 50% over the last number of years. The cost and size is frankly too big, and it doesn't work for people. I'm going to ask you, you think your services are 50% better? Because I would argue that they're about 100% worse. And that's what we have to attack that problem in Ottawa. We're going to scrap C-69, the anti-energy laws that don't allow us to take what everybody wants out of the ground. They continue to put dollars and cents in the pockets of dictators rather than our own people. By selling our oil at a discount to the U.S., we need to think about new markets, new customers, to build our own economy for our own people, where we can build our own Canadian pipelines with Canadian steel and Canadian workers. That's just a part of our plan. I know we'll get through a lot of it tonight, but what I wanted to ask you tonight is that I need your help. Neil needs your help. I think we can turn this riding. I've always thought that. It's why Pierre has been here. It's why I have been here. It's why we continue to come here time after time to understand and learn what the community wants. That's what this town hall is about. But I also need your help. I need your time, your talent, your treasure, whatever you can give. The election is coming up. There's no question about that. As soon as they're done their political drama, as soon as they're done the coronation of Mark Carney, which they seem to have chosen well before that leadership even started, we're going to have a federal election. And Neil's going to need every single person to knock on every single door and talk to every single neighbor so that we can send him to Ottawa to actually have a voice for the people of Mount Royal at a table. A voice that matters, a voice that's not ignored, and a voice that's going to be loud, just like he's done in the community, not over the last 16 months, not only over the last 16 months, but over the entire years that he has served as a father, as a community leader, and as somebody who's going to make a really, really good colleague and an even better MP. So happy to be here, happy to answer your questions. And I know that we'll hang out for a little while afterwards. Make sense?
That's it. Okay.
Hoping my mic works. Okay, so we're going to start with questions. As you know, those of you who are RSVP'd, we're given the option to ask a question. You had a terrific participation rate, so this is a really engaged group of people here. So the bulk of the questions actually easily could be broken down into basically 2 or 3. So I'm going to put those questions to the candidates, and then if we've got some time afterward, we'll open up the floor for some questions. I'll give you instructions how to do that. So, guys, first topic, and there's no particular order to this. So the first topic that came up is basically the state of our relations with the U.S. Obviously, President Trump is going back and forth on tariffs. He might have tariffs now on March the 3rd. He might have tariffs on April the 2nd. For the benefit of the audience, I know Pierre has talked about this before. What is the intention from Poilievre government, or come an election when we get elected? How are we going to deal with President Trump?
Okay, so this question comes up very often. Why? So I think before I answer the question, let's look at the why. Why is it that our country is used as a gateway for illicit drugs to go? Sorry? Okay.
Because of the liberals.
Okay, because of the liberals. So we have drugs going south to our neighbors. Obviously, a country should protect its citizens, its borders. Second, we have terrorists coming to our country and using us as a gateway. They come to our country, they go south. So when you ask yourself, why is President Trump putting on these tariffs? Well, those are some of the reasons, but the other reasons are Canada has a massive amount of resources. And Canada has been weak because of leadership or a lack of leadership. So when you have a lack of leadership in your country, and when you have borders that are not safe, when you have people coming here to do bad things, and then you get a strong leader in the US, you may disagree with him, not everybody has to like him, but qualify him for what he is. He's a strong person, and he plans on protecting his country. So when you combine those two elements with an extremely strong leader, what do you get? You get somebody trying to take advantage of you. But guess what? The Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, we're not selling Canada out. Canada is not going to be the 51st state or the 52nd or the 53rd. Canada is a sovereign country. We have to learn to work with our neighbors. We're going to have to negotiate. But negotiation isn't capitulation. I work in a business where I deal with difficult people all the time. What do? Do I crawl back into my office and figure out what not to do? We need leadership. And I have said it, and you have said it. We need serious people in Ottawa. People that are responsible. But when you prorogue your parliament where debate is supposed to take place, where people are supposed to be able to be heard, you're not being heard, you're on mute. And by the way, if you think you're not going to be on mute, if the next election happens and I and Melissa and a lot of us are not in Ottawa, you're going to be on mute for another 5 years. And you know what? Bad things will happen when you're not heard. So, Mr. Trump, President Trump knows that dealing with Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives will have a different outcome. But we got to get there. So, I don't know how this is all going to end up, but here's a certification, a solemn affirmation. There is not one person in this room, in this party, that will ever give up Canadian sovereignty. When the Chinese and the Russians pop up in the Arctic, try to take our country, they do so because they see weakness. And weakness is not going to carry the day. We live in a new world. We live in a new society. We have to buckle up, pull up our pants, and say, look, start doing things a different way. So I'll leave you with this. Are you ready for change? Because if you're not, you're in the wrong place. So, this is my message.
That's good. I want to start by talking about I think a conversation that many are having in this country, and it's almost as if we're having a conversation about what it means to be Canadian again. Now, I'll tell you a little bit of my story in case you don't know it. But I'm a child of immigrants. My parents came here in the 1970s, and they came here with very little. Same story as you would hear almost in every corner of the country. My father came here as an uncredentialed engineer, and he drove a cab, and he put my mom through school so that he can buy a home in a safe neighborhood, put both his kids through university, and in one generation, you go from the front seat of a taxi to the front row of Parliament Hill. That's how the country's supposed to work. And the reason they came here and they ran away from everything that they knew to start a better life was so they can make their own decisions, so that they can own something. My parents, by the way, came from a communist country, so that they can make the decisions about how to raise their family, so that they could buy a home, so that they could raise their kids in safety without the constant threat of oppressive governments. That's why they came here. And the proudest day in their lives, one of the proudest days in their lives, there was always family occasions, and we got married, and we got into certain school programs, but one of the proudest days in their lives was their Canadian Citizenship Day. Like that day where they became Canadian citizens. And look what this government has done. You can now get your Canadian citizenship on Zoom. The very same people that are wrapping themselves in the flag are the ones who just 2 years ago flew it at half-mast and were ashamed of it. They took the symbols out of our passports, things like Terry Fox and Parliament, and they replaced it with squirrels and boys jumping into lakes. This is all the opposite of what we believe and our pride in Canadian values. So that's where we have to start with this conversation. And we're never going to take lessons from these people about patriotism. We got to be proud of who we are. We got to know we're never going to be the 51st state. We're a sovereign country with a proud history and a proud military. When it comes to tariffs, we're going to respond dollar for dollar on the things that hurt Americans most and help the Canadians, making sure that we put our workers first. But it shouldn't take Donald Trump to tell us that we have issues to fix. And it shouldn't be a problem pointing out that there are things in this country that are deeply, deeply broken for large portions of the Canadian public. Where have they been for the last month when we had this tariff threat? We could have killed Bill C-69 and started the process of building our own energy capacity, mining our critical minerals. We could have killed our weak on bail policy, Bill C-75 and Bill C-5 that allow violent criminal offenders out on jail. We could have had a big tax cut. We could have done all of these things. We could have secured our borders with more border guards and put scanners in so we know what's coming out and into this country. Those are the things that we have to do to fix it, but it shouldn't take the Americans to tell us that we have to fix these things. We should want to do these things. And that's the change that we are going to bring. The change that we are going to not only be proud Canadians, but look at ourselves and look at the things that don't make sense in this country for so many people and actually fix them. That's the way that we're going to respond. We're going to respond by getting stronger as a nation.
Okay, thanks, guys. Before I get to the second question, just first of all, I should introduce myself. I'm Jeff Joseph. I'm actually Neil's campaign chair, current election, if you don't know. Just before we get there, I just want to acknowledge a couple of special guests in the room. I'm going to start because I see her first in the front row. DDO City Councillor and Conservative candidate in the riding of Pierrefonds DDO, Tanya Toledano, is here in the front row. And by the way, if I name, you can stand up and give them a wave if you'd like to. So there you go. All right. I see a little bit back. We have a good friend from Laval. He's running in the Laval-Dasile riding, Konstantinos Marakos. Yeah. And a little blast from the past, our Mount Royal candidate in 2019, and he's actually the candidate for the 2025 mayoral race for the city of Côte St. Luc, David Torgman. I think I saw you. There you go. He's in the back. He's in the back. Yeah. So, okay, now let's get, with that in mind, okay, now the ceremony stuff out of the way, let's get to the second question. In your hands, because we know that this is a big topic at the doors too. The subject of anti-Semitism in the streets of Montreal, the campuses, that's going to be your wheelhouse. We know the other MP obviously talks a lot about it's the province's problem, it's the local police's problem. We stand with the Jewish community. Guys, Neil, will obviously start with you. Your take and what we can do about it if we can.
Thanks, Jeff.
You bet.
You would think in 2025 we wouldn't be talking about why can't Jews live amongst everybody else. You would think in 2025 these concepts would have been extinguished. You know, anti-Semitism is a disease of the mind, of the soul, of the spirit. It's a disease. So what do? What have we done? What can you do? All great questions. But here's what's not getting us anywhere. Talk, 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 do nothing. It's not me, it's him, it's not him, it's her, it's the province, it's the mayor. By the way, the mayor of Montreal is a derelict, incompetent person, okay? Free speech, apparently. And I can say that. I've written her the most letters of demand asking her, why are our streets in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, full of haters? Why are streets being blocked by people who hate? They hate you, they hate you, they hate everybody. Why? Because it's a disease of the mind. Because we have a shitty immigration policy that allows people, I'm going to call it what it is, a shitty immigration policy. Okay, not very political. Listen, you want straight talk or you want bullshit, okay? This is why tonight is not about me, it's about you, and it's about getting to the answers. So, I'm going to answer the question. Anti-Semitism is a problem for everybody, including Jews, non-Jews, and others, because what happens to Jews will happen to everybody else. You are guaranteed, when they're finished with the people that go to synagogue on Saturday, they'll go to the people on Sunday who are at church, and maybe Monday at the mosque, and Tuesday at the temple. It's going to come. So what have I done, and what are we going to do? So I'm not going to do the whole historical what I've done. You probably saw it. But the difference between me and those other people is I'm doing something. We have to stop talking about what was versus what needs to be. Look, tonight there was a hater here. You fortunately didn't have to suffer the indignity of the hater. I'm not going to mention names. It's not worth it. They feel empowered to come to our places, block synagogues, churches, schools, elementary schools, nursery schools. Why? Because they feel empowered, because nobody in government is doing anything. So you ask yourself, how are we going to get through this problem? So, first of all, legislation that's not enforced is valueless. Everybody says, Neil, what law would you create? Melissa, what law would Neil Oberman create? I'd create the law of action. What does that mean? You take a book called the Criminal Code that's really thick, and you flip through it and you say, Section 176, subparagraph 1 says, you can't block a religious institution if something's going on there. And I'm just giving you in a layman's term. Why do I need more laws? We need police who enforce the laws. But you know why police don't enforce laws? Because politicians don't give them the orientation to solve the problem. Yes, correct, yes. Neil Oberman, Melissa Lantzman are not the police. But I don't give you an answer, it's not me, it's not her, it's him, it's the other people. This circle of doing nothing has gotten us nowhere. So private people, I'm in the private world, I'm a lawyer. Oh, great, fancy, I got a law degree, I have a master's of law. Oh, it's fancy, means nothing. You know why it means nothing? Because if you can't do anything with it, it has no value. So what did we do? Private citizens. Michael Hollander, are you here tonight? Where's Michael Hollander? That over there, ladies and gentlemen, is a fighter. Is a fighter. Why? Because he said, there's Michael. He said, and I said, and Melissa said, we're not taking this anymore. I talk to young people every day, and we talk to them, and we say, what's on your mind? They said, well, I can't go to school. I come through the gauntlet of hate. People are telling me I kill babies. How many babies have you killed? Are you genocidal? You're pro-genocidal? Here's what that is. It's an attempt to kill our young people by demoralizing and dehumanizing them. Listen and listen carefully. This is the message. I know I deliver it in a really tough way. It's not because I'm tough, and it's because I care for you. We are going to take back our streets, take back our institutions, take back our metros, take back our stores. Everywhere where they are, they'll be gone. And what is the policy? Here is the policy. If you're here on a student visa, and there are many people here on student visas who are blocking schools, blocking synagogues, blocking roads, blocking metros, you know what's going to happen to those people? Does anybody know what's going to happen to those people? No. We're going to be Canadians, and we're going to apply the rule of law. The rule of law, it's that thing that says it's an objective metric. So if you're here on a visa, it's a privilege and not a right. We're going to identify those people in a proper government that cares for its citizens. It's not going to bullshit you like we can't do anything. And then we're going to apply the law. One of the elements that's available is you revoke somebody's permit to be here, and they go home. You want to use the word deport. You want to hear the word removal order. It's all the same. We are going to take back what has been stolen. Young people's dignity has been lost in this quagmire of nonsense. If you vote for these people, shame on you. Shame on you for voting for people who have dehumanized us, demoralized us, taken our kids and put them in the corner. Look, I know it's a hard message. I know some folks here always want to criticize, but I believe in you. Do you believe in yourself? Do you love your grandchildren? Do you love your grandchildren? Stop thinking about yourself. Think about them. Here is my pledge. It's a simple pledge. If you take this to the bank, and I tell you this with openness, I Neil Oberman, when I'm elected, and when I'm sitting at a table with reasonable, respectful people, I will do everything in my power to make sure there is not going to be the room for those people to stay here in this country at our expense and do those things. It will end, it will be finished, it will be over.
Thank you. I first want to start by, look, I know that the Jewish community, I hear it everywhere in the country, has faced over the last 15 months something that we thought was unimaginable in this country. But I want to start, I'm very bad at sitting in a chair. I want to start by thanking those who are not part of the Jewish community, who are allies in this fight. The people who are freedom-loving, who want to see their country go back to normal. And here's the thing that we're going to do. First of all, we have a leader who has been unequivocal in the position. Unequivocal. And he says the same thing in every location, no matter where he's standing. He doesn't send one group of MPs into a synagogue to say the right things to one community and another group of MPs into a mosque to say the exact opposite. And we don't say that either. When we meet with all groups, they have to know where I stand on this issue, and then we can find commonality in other issues. But to pretend that it matters, that your local MP, that any local MP of the party says one thing to one community, it is the height of hypocrisy. When you vote for that one person, you vote to keep a prime minister in power, a prime minister who has not addressed the nation about this, who has been silent when things happen, who has been silent on a week like this week, where babies were delivered back to the citizens of Israel in boxes. I come from a city where they lit our city hall in orange yesterday, and there was a beautiful memorial. And I wish there was more cities like that. And I think that under the leadership of somebody who's unequivocal, somebody who will say what he means in every single location, that will happen. But let me tell you what we are going to do. We're going to do the exact opposite of what has been done. We're never going to appoint somebody like Laith Marouf, an racist consultant paid for by tax dollars. We're never going to send a single tax dollar to organizations like UNRWA, who are complicit in October 7th and killing our own people. We would never hire somebody like Birju Ditani to be the head of the Human Rights Commission, who is an apologist for terror, to arbitrate something as serious as that in the country. We will make sure that every federal dollar that flows to the universities where Jewish students feel safe on campus. We will stop the woke identity politics and the DEI in all of our federal institutions, who allow the perversion of these narratives to happen in all of our institutions, in our unions, in our police forces, and just everywhere else in between. But that all has to happen when there is clear, unequivocal leadership at the top. If you are caught committing a crime in this country and you are not a citizen, you are going home. The beauty of this country is that you can come here and you can work hard, and if you follow the law, you will get all of Canada's promise. But if you don't, you got to leave those problems at home, and if you don't, you're not welcome here. If you're breaking the law, you're not welcome here. We are effectively going to do the exact opposite of what you have seen over the last 15 months and frankly before that. And that will be a gift to every single community, including those allies who have stood with a community all along. So thank you again for that. I know we have one more from the paper and then we'll open it up, yeah?
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so yeah, we're going to have one more question that was again based on you guys. It was kind of alluded to already before, but we have a lot of people who just want to kind of get a straight answer on the Conservative Party's position on immigration, because we know we've got the temporary visa issue, the student visa issue, everything. So just once and for all, so because there's a lot of confusion out there, let's just get it straight what our party position
So we
is.
had a consensus in this country on immigration for a long, long time. I told you the story of my mother and my father who came here for the benefits of everything that it meant to be Canadian. And we had the most revered system. People literally studied our system, where we brought in people for the labor force. We had a generous family reunification plan. We had a refugee policy. But that consensus has been broken. Not because Canadians have suddenly changed their mind on immigration. I could probably poll half the room, including myself, who are either immigrants themselves, children of immigrants, and certainly grandchildren of immigrants who loved this, who still love this country, who have gained the benefits from this country, but that doesn't work anymore when it's not working for people. So we have a very simple plan. We're going to cut the number down to 250,000 and make sure that we keep track of those that we let in here. We're going to make sure that we tie the immigration number to things like housing start, a simple mathematical equation. So we have the resources here to make sure that when you offer the promise of Canada, that people actually get the promise of Canada. That's a home, a doctor, a place to go to school, a park to play in, all of those things. We're going to make sure that we crack down on our security and our vetting. We are a government we will be a government under Pierre Poilievre who will not be afraid to list a terrorist organization when they're a terrorist organization. We do not have to be pushed into a corner to do it. The IRGC wasn't listed in this country for 6 years, and in that time there are 700 active agents that we know of here who are running around intimidating the communities in which we live. That cannot happen. And that is the direct responsibility of a government who, on the very last day that they could, on the eve of a by-election in Toronto, finally did the right thing and put them on the list. But it took 6 years, and there are many more bad actors in this country. And I think you need a government that's serious about security, about vetting, about making sure there's law and order in our system, about making sure that the Canadian promise is afforded to those who come to this country to work hard, get ahead, and follow the rules.
Thank you, Melissa. I want to talk more, I want to tell you about a practical situation. I see here a very fine young student named Anastasia. And I don't know if you know her. She's an activist at Concordia University for Startup Nation. And I want to tell you, I want to segue into something. Do you know that we wrote a letter to Rachel Ben-Dayan and Mr. McGuinty, who are co-chairs of the Public Safety and Security Ministry? What did I do in that letter? I echoed what Anastasia and Michael and Drew and Deanna, all these good students who can't go to school, that on their campus there are people promoting terrorism. Promoting terrorism. You say, well, what does that have to do with immigration? Well, everything. I'll tell you why. Because when you don't have proper immigration and you don't screen people properly, and then when you screen them and you recognize there's a threat matrix, you got to do something about it. So I wrote that letter 2 weeks ago. Did I get a response? No. Because we're on mute. And you're going to remain on mute, respectfully, until we have proper representation in Ottawa. I need to tell you something, and it's so super important. You don't vote only for the person, you vote for the party. If you vote for Mr. X, you're voting for X, Y, Z, Q, their whole caucus. And by the way, and here I'm going to get in trouble, they have a Hamas wing of their party, okay? Of their party, okay? So what happens is, if you keep voting for those people, you're going to vote for those other people who don't like you. There's no Hamas wing of the Conservative Party of Canada. This I can promise you, okay? There is none. There's not going to be one. There should never be one. And you don't like the message, I understand. But here's the reality. Anastasia can't go to school in 2025 without having 4 lawyers. That's because we're not paying attention to the details. So, I'll end with this. Canada used to be a beacon of light. It was like, wow, I'm coming to Canada. It's the promised land. And you know, by the way, my grandparents came to this country, and my mom's mom came to this country. We're all from somewhere. That's not the issue. The question is, are you parking your bags at the front door before you get here? And that, ladies and gentlemen, friends, has not been happening. And so when you bring your baggage here and it spills into our society, and you're already in this corner because you're Jewish, and that corner because you're Hindu, and that corner because you're Italian, and the Greeks are over there, nobody talks to each other because it's the politics of division. And the politics of division create more division, and guess what gets filled in the void? The hate. And that is the problem. So immigration is the outward manifestation of a sickness in our government that's controlled by people who are not responsible and are not real people doing their job. So, finally, only you folks will bring the change. Nobody else but you. And if you're ready for it, you know what you need to do. Are you ready for change? I'm going to keep asking you, are you ready for change? It's a yes or a no. Well, let me tell you something. I'm ready to do the job that's very hard to do. I just want to personalize something. You know, I have a son, I have a wife, I have a brother who's here today, my mother's here, my father's not here. You know, that takes a toll on you as a human being. Do you know what it's like every day? And Melissa knows full well. It's not like a fun job here defending people and trying to support people. And you know, Tanya knows it too. But sometimes we have to stop talking about yourself. Me, 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 me. Look what I did, look what I did, look what she... It's not about me, it's not about her, it's about us as a community. And if we can't change the narrative, nothing will change for us. So, I thank you for listening. We're going to take your questions, and you're going to get direct answers. You might not like all the answers, but you're going to get direct answers.
Okay, so we do have some time. So we're going to invite people to ask questions. Hang on. So
I feel like I'm on a leash with this mic.
Anybody wants to come? We do have a mic here. If you want to maybe stand up and try to talk loud enough, that's okay too. We'll try to coordinate best we can. The only thing I'll ask here, so we can get maximum response here, is try to focus in on the question as much as possible. We don't try to keep the speech before it down. So let's just stick to the questions, and we'll get as much as we can answered. But don't worry, I think Melissa's going to maybe stick around for a few minutes afterward to meet everybody and to have some one-on-ones. Okay, so so we got a lot of questions here. So let's start. Okay, Mr. Shafters, we'll start with you.
Can I have a mic or?
The mic's right over behind you. Get that mic turned. We can get that mic turned on. Perfect.
It seems that C is.
That's a big question.
So I'll challenge the Conservative Party for this initiative to severely reduce anti-Semitism. Often, Neil, when we do our walk from Hampstead Park to the Jerusalem Y to release the hostages, we talk about anti-Semitism, that we see it in Montreal as being somebody who covers their facial identity with a hoodie. That makes it very easy to shout hate, commit hate, assault, vandalize, target our synagogues, schools, etc. Mayor Plante, as you said, is not going to do anything. And Fatty Daguerre, her commissioner, is not going to do anything against what Valerie Plante says. So therefore, I say to you, please tell all municipalities coast to coast, because anti-Semitism is rampant, that you will provide the signs. It'll be a sign of a pictogram of a person covering their facial identity with a hoodie, with a red X across it, and a double, triple $sign underneath it, that you will provide those signs for every municipality that wants it and for every campus that wants it. It's a winner.
Okay, we're taking suggestions too.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no question? Okay. So, sir, let's go ahead. We're going to get there.
Thank you very much. Just the mic a bit. Can I take this over here? I'd like to speak to the people.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you very much. You know what? I just got back from Florida an hour ago. And these guys said, come over, there's something going on here. And you know, I've been a Canadian for 83 years. For the last number of years, I've lost a lot of my feelings about Canada. As we all know, there's a lot of trouble going on here. In fact, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab said, and most of us know this, he has Trudeau in his pocket and more than half of his cabinet. I don't know if you know that. Now, his cabinet, I don't know how many people it is.
We're going to need a question, Bernie, because I'd like to give you an answer. So I don't want to be rude, but just because there's so many people.
I'm going to be one more minute.
I'll give you 30
Because
seconds.
the problem-
We're going to negotiate like with Trump. Okay,
problem-
30, we're going to
well,
get 30 seconds. Go ahead.
The problem is I like the energy that's in this room.
Good.
And the problem is we're facing more than half the cabinet that's against us. And I'm wondering how, the question is, how you're going to be able to handle that.
You know how, Bernie? Because we're going to have a seat at the table, which you haven't had for 9.5 years. There's a man here who's elected in one of the most prosperous ridings in all of Canada, and for 9.5 years, there's been no seat at the table. No seat at the table means not being heard. And so here, I think Melissa will validate this. With the grace of God and the good people of Mount Royal, and if I am elected, where will I sit, Melissa?
Certainly had a seat at the table. Bernie, the answer is simple. We're going to vote them out. Every single one of them. And we're going to need your help to do it.
Fantastic.
Good.
We're doing our job. Thank you, Bernie.
All right, thanks, Bernie. Ken, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, everyone's got certain strong opinions about Trump, especially what he's doing to this country. Having said that, he's also doing a lot of things that make sense, like Doge. Now, he might be going about it in too harsh a way, but the concept of cutting government waste and being more efficient with our spending is a good one. For example, when I asked the question online, I've seen that the refugees that are coming to this country are getting all kinds of money and all kinds of handouts. Will your government go through these line item things and cut out the bullshit and the funding of terrorism and giving people, refugees, money, many of whom hate us, and many other expenses so that we get our financial house in order?
100.
Sorry, before you answer, you said your government? No.
Our government.
That's
Whatever. No,
Here's
pass it to
a-
Melissa.
No, my
I'll
question
say,
was, will your, hopefully when you get elected,
Thank you.
start cutting the crap out?
Certainly our future. I'll say this one thing. I can't agree with you on the Trump. I'm a proud Canadian, a proud Canadian politician, and I will always put this country first. Our workers and our people. One of the things that we're going to bring in, first and foremost, a dollar for dollar law to get our spending under control in ministries. We've said very clearly that we are going to cut our foreign aid spending and put all of that money back into our military to give our people, our men and women in uniform, a dignified life and service, and so they don't have to buy their own helmets and eat in food banks. We have always looked at government efficiency. I think part of that efficiency is making sure we'd reduce the size of government. Some of that will happen certainly through attrition. And of course, the key to running an efficient government that costs people less and gives them more is finding those programs that nobody wants and nobody uses in the government and finally getting rid of them. We've got a big job ahead to make sure that every single tax dollar is treated as if you would treat your budget at home. And you have my commitment, you have the commitment of Pierre Poilievre, who said that many times, that we will get this house in order. And it should have never taken a threat from the U.S. to get us thinking about these big things. We should have done it before. It should have, and if these guys are promising you now, you should ask them why they took 9 years not to do anything about it.
All right, next question.
Yes, hi Melissa. My name is Mandana Javan. I'm an Iranian-born woman who support the Jewish community. As you know, there are many in Ontario, Toronto. There are many Iranians who support Jewish community, and we are in this fight together. Now, I'm going to talk about a subject with you that maybe you are not going to like. I already talked to Neil. He knows my position. But it's very important that Pierre and Conservative Party take and think about this subject, about especially the Quebec province. And this is the matter of the law of laïcité. Laïcité is not secularism. Secularism is just the separation of politics from religion. Laïcité is state from religion. So 14 years I'm doing this. I know that all these organizations that are founded by the federal government, by the city, Valérie Plante, they are all Islamo-gauchists, Islamo-leftists, and they are all promoting the proselytism of Islamism. Then the situation in Quebec is very, very particular because the immigration that comes here is Francophone from Arab countries who has been colonized by France. Then they are extremely more Islamo-lefties and Islamists. Your government, if you're elected, I hope really, you need to understand that bringing the Law 21 in front of the Supreme Court will not be a good idea for the Jewish community in Quebec. I just want to share this thought with you. Thank you.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Social worker who worked quite a lot with immigrants, especially Holocaust survivors from all the countries around the world. I'm thrilled to hear the talk. I know what Neil's doing on anti-Semitism. I've never felt such indifference I was born here. My parents were born here, even though people thought I was really from Europe because I speak the language fluently. But you know, I couldn't believe it, such indifference living here, and it's so great to have him fighting, and you saying no money for UNRWA, getting rid of those students. But I also want to bring some of the issues locally, right here to Mount Royal, that also affect right across Canada. One, the number one issue, our elderly population is going to double between 5 and 10 years. In this community, we have 50% more. A lot of it's provincial, but without the federal help and transfer payments and money, we get nothing here. I can tell you. That's number one. Number two, this community desperately needs affordable social housing for autistic and special needs. I'm going to send you the petition that Liz is putting out. My question is, I was shocked to find out that Central Mortgage and Housing, which is federal, had absolutely no programs for autistic and special needs. I could not believe it, so what did I do? I went to my dear friend, Senator Tony Lafreda, who agreed to meet with me, because he's my friend, and with
Sharon,
Liz. The question is, what will you do? There's housing.
Yes.
There's needs for our elderly. There's many needs that provincially we don't get health care. We don't have GPs here. 1 million
Sharon,
Quebecers.
Question.
Well, those are
Sharon,
major
question.
issues.
Sharon, okay.
Okay.
Very good
Thank you.
questions. Here is the answer for you. Everybody, I think these are great questions. Here is the answer to you. Housing is a central issue. Do you know that there is plenty of space to build homes, but it's being backlogged by members of parliament in this riding who are seeking to use leverage for their other needs in other parts of the riding, while there remains large tracts of land that could be developed. I know this because I was contacted by the developers for jockeys, for blue bonnets. And they want to build 10,000 homes of different kinds for different levels of the economic strata. And you know what? It's being blocked by the Liberal NDP government through its members of parliament that don't see the same vision. So, There are provincial matters, there are federal matters. But you know the answers that we keep getting? It's not me, it's him, it's not him, it's her. Here's the bottom line. You have a local M&A. Why don't you have her do something? Because clearly she's not doing anything. I'll tell you also that she's big on, as we know, helping the segment that you're talking about. I have this person who's been contacting me, Ava, I won't give her family name. She cries to me all the time, my son can't get any treatment, he has nowhere to go. And what do you say to people? You feel empathy for them. We're all fathers. You know, Sharon, you're a great leader. But the reality is we have to rethink on how we spend our money and where we need to put the effort. If you don't have a doctor, how many people here don't have GPs? Okay, wait, 1, 2, 10, too many. We need to spend our money. So when the federal government gives money to the provinces, it has to come with expectations. It has to come with conditions. Spend it properly. Now, you're not going to get all the answers you want, Sharon, but here's what I'm going to encourage you to do. You keep doing what you're doing. Now we're going to do something that hasn't been done, which is being very effective and efficient. You know, the other guy says, I'm very effective at being inefficient. That's not a skill set that we need today as great Canadians. We need effective leaders who are responsible. We're going to work for you. Keep in touch. You know I work with you, and we'll continue to work with anybody, because the message is only you will bring the change, nobody else.
Sharon, I'll add a little bit to Neil and give you a bit of a policy answer. And first and foremost, I think there's two incredible things that are a bright spot in what you said. And for the first time, those with disabilities, and particularly those with autism, are outliving their parents. That never happened before, where they need the housing potentially because they don't have the care. That's an amazing thing. And we know that our needs are getting bigger in this area, in an aging population. On our housing plan, we've got to force municipalities with the power of the public purse to make sure that they're actually approving more housing. And when they don't, we penalize them. We don't build a housing accelerator that's spent $90 billion to build less housing. Housing starts in our biggest cities are down year over year. So we've got to change the plan. We're going to sell off 37,000 government buildings, government lands, in order to build more of that housing. And no matter what housing goes into the housing stock, it's going to make sure that more housing becomes available. We're going to take the GST off of homes under $1 million. When you buy those homes for the first time, you're going to hear that idea over and over again from the other party that's going to steal it. But I want you to make sure I want you to know that when Pierre Poilievre is Prime Minister, that's one of the priorities. And then on the doctors issue, we need to figure this out. We're going to bring forward a Blue Seal plan, and that Blue Seal plan does a couple of things. One, it's going to let you work in every part of this country. So no matter if you're in Nova Scotia or none of it, you're credentialed to work everything, and that's for the professions. We've had a red seal for the trades for a very long time in this country that has worked. The other thing it's going to do, when you come over here, you want to know if you're going to be able to work to the fullest scope of your practice and the fullest scope of the education that you got. And we have to be able to tell you that. If there's courses you can do we're going to work with folks, let's say in the Philippines, on the issue of nursing, make sure that people are credentialed and do some of those courses on that side, and they know within 6 weeks of getting to this country if they can work. That's going to be important. We're going to have to put some pressure on provinces to make sure that credentials are approved. If you are a doctor who went to school in Germany or the Netherlands, systems and an education that is subjectively and objectively better than our system, unfortunately, you should be credentialed as a doctor here, no questions asked.
Yeah, next. Okay, next question. Let's try to get to the question.
I actually got two separate questions. One question would be, I'm going to go back to the old days where tips weren't being taxed, and also overtime wasn't as crazy where people don't want to work overtime. So that's the first one. The second one has to do with why isn't there enough investigation on, for example, in elementary school, high school, and all that, where a lot of them are being doctrinated into a communist way of thinking? Those are two questions I have.
Okay. You want to deal with tips, and I'll deal with the second question?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll deal with the second question. So you know recently the Quebec government had to go into a local school here in Cote-Neige in order to apply the laws of our province, right? And here's the problem, sir. The problem here is it's always a lack of leadership. It really is. We can't speak to what the provinces do, but I can speak to what the federal government should be doing. And it all stems from that concept that we discussed. And as reasonable Canadians, we know that when you have strong leadership with strong messaging and you apply your laws, it trickles down, right? In business, if you have a strong president, a strong CEO, the employees will be validated and you'll be more productive. Right now, the provinces control immigration, here in Quebec specifically. Schools should be, and I think our friend said, it's not a place for teaching religion. These are not private schools, these are public schools. So the answer to the question is it shouldn't happen, it is happening, and it's fundamentally an issue of lack of responsibility on the part of your local leaders, which are provincial leaders. The federal government, once the Conservative Party is elected in a majority state, will apply the law of Canada. It will apply across the entire country. And I've said it, if you followed me, I've said it frequently. The rule of law has to have meaning. So that you know as a citizen that there's a law in the books, it's going to be applied. So if the law in the book says, you know, you get federal funds, don't promote this, don't promote that, then it shouldn't be promoted. Sir, the problem is, and it'll come back to the fundamental question that I raised, are we going to give these people another mandate to continue to do what they're doing? The answer, I'm betting the answer will be no. So what I would say to you is stay tuned and use your power. You know, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're educated or not, you get one vote. You get one vote. Even a billionaire gets one vote. How are you going to use your vote in the next election? Keep it to yourself, it's rhetorical. But I'm sure you're going to want to bring change, and I support you. Now,
Okay, we got
What
that.
about the other question?
Tips. Are they going to tax the tips?
Oh, tax the look. I mean, overall, we'll go through these questions rather quickly.
Yeah.
I know we're running out of a little bit of time. And
Yeah.
on this issue, right across the board, we're going to lower taxes to put more money in your pocket. A big middle class tax cut, axing the carbon tax, which is going to lower the price of gas, groceries, and food. Making sure that we cut taxes on investment, on growth, on everything that we buy.
Okay, so the rest of the people in line, we're going to try to finish you up.
We're going to go lightning round.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of lightning round. So let's get right to the question, and then we'll move on, and we'll complete this line, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, Yaniv.
Ms. Lassman, it hasn't been said for a while, but back in the day, Monsieur Poilievre mentioned that he'd be willing to allow the province of Quebec to collect the taxes for the federal government so that there would only be one tax return in this province instead of two. Do you trust the province of Quebec with your money that came out of our pockets if they have a tiff with anything that has been done by the federal government?
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put together a group of some smart people in the tax world. We're going to review the tax code, which hasn't been reviewed since before I was born. We've committed to making it simpler, fair, and frankly lower. And we're going to make sure there's 20% less paperwork. That's what we've said. And that's what we are going to do.
What I'd like you to understand is I don't want you to give the power to the province of Quebec because you've both mentioned it. The majority of us are immigrants or children of immigrants or grandchildren of immigrants. It's ironic. I would posit that the majority of people here, their mother tongues are not English, and yet we are under pressure constantly. We do not feel that the federal government, including the Conservative government, the Conservative Party, understands the Anglophone reality in the province of Quebec. If you think that Quebec is not going to separate the very first chance they think they have a chance, you're mistaken. So please, keep your eye on the ball.
Okay, next.
Two quick questions, and I'm going to make it lightning. My first question is, how come in the United States mortgage payments are tax deductible and they're not here when housing is such a big issue? And my second question, I own a small business here in Montreal I used to be a very proud Canadian, hope to be a proud Canadian again. Accountability is my question. How come things like a Arrive scam and we're constantly reading in the news and seeing in the newspaper, cost much less, and people talk about it, and then there's no accountability, none whatsoever, and it's so frustrating for us.
So, one, stay tuned for our platform for all of the plans. But you're absolutely right. We have to reduce the burden of the excessive payments that we have in our lives, the excessive costs of everything, and we've got a plan to do it. I'm going to save some of it for the platform because every time Pierre says something, somebody looks over at a sheet and copies it and then announces it in the Liberal leadership debate. So we're going to hold some of that. On the other point of accountability in terms of the corruption, in terms of, look, we've been, the job of the official opposition has been to litigate all of those, to make them, to make them known. And the accountability for all of these matters comes in the next election, where you can vote these criminals out. People who have been found guilty of breaking ethics laws, including the Prime Minister, who didn't do it once, didn't do it twice, did it 3 times. Yeah, well, and make sure that you're paying attention to every single person that is running in the next leadership is there to continue the chaos of the last 9 years.
Well, actually, what I wanted to say that there's a huge, immense, debt, foreign debt that this government get from the foreign countries. So, I mean, former governments, it's maybe more than all of them, and you will get a collapsed economy because a lot of, I mean, I don't say you, I want to say we, because I want to also part of. So how, could you frame, I know dollar to dollar and also tax policy will help to that, but because it's a very strong part is the economy for us, how you think to frame it, the change to the opposite, instead of having so much debt, the money will be well managed, the guarantee.
For sure. I'll answer that. You want to ask the question? We're going to answer a couple of them in a row, just making sure that we can get through everybody so we have enough time.
Yeah.
I'm not so tall. My family spends a lot of time in the United States, and these past few months we've been burdened with what happened to Canada. So my question is, between the Halloween costumes and the fancy socks and everything that this government has done to embarrass us on the world stage, what's Mr. Poilievre's plan to bring Canada back to its glory, which was a country to be admired on the foreign stage? I'm not talking about just nationally.
For sure.
Perfect. Go ahead, Sam.
Okay. Here in Quebec, there's a rising threat of the PQ, and the question is, how are you going to stand up to them with leurs amis du Bloc and the Québécois? How's the Conservative Party is going to do that?
Okay.
You don't want to?
Yeah, come on.
Okay. Yep, keep going.
Pardon. Bon, Neil, tu connais mon amour pour le français.
Oui,
ça.
je parle français.
Tous les dimanches, on fait une marche pour les otages qui partent du parc Hampstead. Neil est venu plusieurs fois. Alors moi, ça se répond pas oui ou par non. Il y a Léo aussi qui est déjà venu. Mais Lisa, est-ce que tu pourrais venir une fois avec Pierre pour la marche?
Bien sûr.
Merci.
We know that the MP for this riding now has said many times that there's nothing much the federal government could do in terms of anti-Semitism on campus. So what can you guys do? Because I'm applying to universities in CEGEP soon. I need to know, should I stay in Canada or not?
Stay. We want you to stay. Stay.
Stay. We want him to stay.
Go on.
Stay. We'll ask these couple, and we'll address all of them.
You talked about stopping funding UNRWA, which is a great start, because right now the situation is that my taxes are funding the missiles that are targeting my family. But what are you going to do about money going from Muslim charities to Hamas? How are you going to stop that?
Yeah, good question. And last?
So I have one statement and 2 quick questions. First of all, we're going to definitely have to get Neil elected, or
Definitely.
we're going to work very hard to make it happen. It's my personal last stance, or I'm going to have to move to Florida or Texas. My question is as follows. With regard to the first one, with regard to security, second with regard to education, and they're both intertwined. Why is it okay for us to have armed guards guarding money and we cannot have any armed guards guarding our schools when we've clearly been shot at multiple times in the past few years. And the second one with regard to education is, would the government consider a voucher system where we can have a religious education, like we pay the school taxes and we get nothing in return besides for, you know, them trying to take us to court for not educating our children when it's our tradition and our custom of education for thousands of years that we're following.
Okay, I'm gonna leave the education question to Neil, because I come from Ontario, where we have got a whole different issue on the expense of private schools. Look, I'll touch on some of these issues. I think we're walking into, and Pierre, when he becomes Prime Minister, he's walking into an economic situation that is unprecedented. This is a Prime Minister that has spent more than every single Prime Minister combined. We don't know what's in the cupboards. We don't know if they took the cupboards. We don't know if they took the hardware to the cupboards. But it might not be the situation that we're going to look at. Making sure that we put more money into people's pockets while finding efficiencies and a government that works is how we're going to do it. Expanding our own economy. There's a couple ways that you can do it. One, you can make the government more efficient by reducing the size of government through things like attrition. And you can also grow our economy, which has not happened in this country, right? We need to build pipelines. We need to kill our anti-energy laws. We need to bring in credentialing so that people have the services that they need and people are productive, working members of society who are paying more taxes. I want corporations to do well here. You know why? Because then they pay more tax. And we shouldn't be an enemy of business. Now, on the issue of I'll let Neil answer some of it, but on universities, there is something that the federal government can do. And when you're making your decisions about where you go to school or how you feel on campus, the federal government has about $3 billion tied up in federal funding to universities, be it through granting councils or Canada Research Chairs. And we have said very, very clearly and unequivocally, both to university presidents and in public, that if Jewish students don't feel safe on campus, there will be conditions on the funding. And that is something that I want to hear from every party and every government, because it should never be a country where there is a group of students on campus that don't feel safe. We were at Dawson today, and it's pretty shocking, basically where the location is and where the students are eating, and the stories that I heard. I'd never thought that would be a conversation that I'd be having. On the issue of on security and protection, and when it comes to protecting our institutions and what people are carrying, we have to go back to a culture where we respect our police officers, where we give them the funding that they need, where we focus on recruitment and retention and building a warrior force that we can be proud, where we don't have politicians in this country spending the better part of their adult lives marching to defund the police. I'd want to see increased funding for the police. I want to see bail reform that is supported by all of those forces. I want to see killing of Bill C-5, which allows you to serve your sentence in your mom's basement. I want all of that gone. I want to know that if in this country a 6-year-old is stabbed, that the 19-year-old who stabbed them is in jail and belongs there and will be there for a long, long time. That's the kind of country and that's the kind of law and order that I want to see. And we're not talking about anything insane. We just want this country to go back to normal, where people feel safe in their neighborhoods, where they can walk with their head high, where young people can afford a home, where if they do everything right, like they've always done, that they can work hard and get ahead. That's the country I want to live in.
Thank you. A promise was made to each Canadian. Work hard, be a good citizen. You should be able to live in peace, prosperity, and in safety. It's a basic promise. The promise has been broken. Okay, it's simple. So what do we do to fix it? Everything that they do, we're not going to do. It's very simple. It's like a simple policy statement. They don't do anything properly. Why is a young person in 2025 standing up and going, hey, Neil, I'm thinking about leaving. I don't think there's a future for me. When I was growing up, those weren't the kind of issues that I had. Those aren't the kind of issues that a young person should have. That's because this country is not respecting its commitment to its young people, to its citizens. It's going to stop. How is it going to stop? It's first going to stop by stop voting for the people who caused the problem. And we're going to do things that are going to be hard to do. But here's another narrative. A gentleman gets up and goes, why are people covering their faces? I hate to break it to everybody here, but if you studied the criminal code, it's already illegal that if you're in an unlawful assembly and you cover your face, it's already illegal. But here's the problem, colleague. Nobody enforces the law because we have to negotiate our survival with people who don't care about us. And they don't care about everybody else. Why do police officers have to have their hands tied behind their back? Why aren't they encouraged, promoted, well paid, respected? Because the culture is changing. The culture has changed where the narrative is now something completely different. People who have been invited here are suing the government because they're not processing their visas quick enough. This, to me, is the epitome of our country have gone backwards. Could you imagine? The hardworking Canadians are spending their money to bring people out of the goodness of their heart to our country, and they're going to sue you because it's not quick enough. Okay, here's a message from Neil Oberman. You can take it back to all your friends. I reject it, I reject it, I reject it, and you should reject it. Just reject it. Now, finally, the promise is broken. We collectively are going to bring back that great sentiment. Do you remember that last year of your high school year for a little bit of younger people? You're outside, the weather is great. Your whole life is ahead of you. You're excited to get on to the next stage in life. Where is that gone? Evaporated, eviscerated, gone. It's coming back because I'll tell you, I am going to put all of my energy, my time, my effort, and my resources. You're not going to have to say, where is Neil Oberman? I can't get a hold of Neil Oberman. I don't sleep 8 hours a day. I don't go to the gym, obviously, 2 hours a day. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do 100% of the day, Melissa, Pierre, Conservative Party. I'm going to represent you. You're going to get your dignity back. We're going to be powerful, and you're going to bring it home. Thanks very much. Have a great evening.
Thanks so much. We're going to hang around here. Thanks to everybody who helped us. Thank you for everybody who made this a safe town hall, who protected those doors. And we're going to stick around for a little bit, and I'm going to ask you one more time. Make sure you're helping Neil. Make sure you tell everyone you know. Tell 10 people that you were here tonight, and make sure they blow up his cell phone.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Neil. Good night, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you.